You know that feeling when something just feels wrong, even before your brain can piece together why. That's exactly what hit me the second I saw the notification pop up on my phone. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because I just settled into the recliner with a cold beer and a half-hearted plan to rewatch The Sopranos. Work had been brutal that day, and I was looking forward to zoning out for an hour or two. But then my phone buzzed. A notification from WhatsApp. Anna added you to work friends conference. I sat up a little confused. My wife, Anna, worked in marketing for a software company, and while I knew she was close with a few of her colleagues, this was the first I'd ever been included in any kind of work group. At first, I figured she added me by mistake. Maybe she meant to add someone else named Aaron or Adam. Still, I clicked it open, expecting boring corporate chatter, maybe pictures from a company picnic or inside jokes I wouldn't get. What I found instead made the blood drain from my face. The first thing that loaded was a video thumbnail. It was muted, but I could clearly see Anna in the frame. My wife, topless, laughing, glass of wine in hand, straddling a guy I didn't recognize at first. It was grainy, maybe taken in a dim hotel room, but unmistakable. My stomach flipped. I froze, thumb hovering over the screen. I didn't want to click play. I didn't want to see it, but I did. The video rolled for less than 30 seconds, but it told me everything I needed to know. There was no ambiguity. It wasn't a flirty video. It wasn't something that could be explained away as a joke. It was sex. Passionate, rough, drunk sex, and she was loving every second of it. The man, I realized after a second, was Jason, her coworker I'd met once at a Christmas party. Tall, charming, and just slimy enough to rub me the wrong way. Now I knew why. I backed out of the video, breath catching in my throat, and saw the full chat thread. That's when it got worse. The group wasn't just Anna and Jason. There were 10, no, 11 people in it, all co-workers from her department. Some names I recognized, some I didn't. What I was reading didn't even feel real. Dozens of messages flew back and forth. Pictures, videos, memes, jokes, explicit details. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. Jason, Friday's conference in Austin is going to be wild. Got us the same suite again, Anna. Emily, don't forget the restraints this time. Anna, only if Jason promises not to break the bed again. I couldn't walk for 2 days last time. That one made me physically ill. I set the phone down and stared into the dark living room, heart pounding. My mouth was dry. My skin felt like it was crawling. I couldn't breathe right, couldn't think. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't one mistake or a drunken fling. It was a lifestyle, and my wife had been living it without me knowing a damn thing. I picked the phone up again, needing to see if maybe, somehow, this was just some elaborate role play, some weird fantasy game. I needed something to make it not real. But it was real. So real. Threads from months ago. Hotel bookings. Explicit photos of Anna and Jason, of Anna and 2 other men, and even a few with women. Her messages were frequent, enthusiastic. She enjoyed this. She wasn't coerced, wasn't manipulated. She was an active, willing participant. Some of the media, photos of group parties, poolside drinking, people making out in dim hotel bars. I could recognize the settings. Anna had told me about some of these work trips. She'd come home tired, sometimes glowing with energy. I thought she was just passionate about her job. I was a fool. Then I saw something that made my stomach lurch. A picture of the group posing together in front of a conference center in San Diego. I remember that trip. She'd come home and told me she missed me. We'd had sex that night, slow, intimate. She'd cried afterward, said she felt reconnected. And the whole time, she'd already been doing this? My hands clenched. My breathing was uneven. I sat there for an hour, scrolling, screenshotting, saving. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me needed proof that I wasn't crazy. Maybe I wanted a record in case I needed to show someone. But I couldn't look away. It was a train wreck of betrayal, and I was stuck on the tracks. I felt like I was floating outside myself, like someone had reached into my chest and pulled out everything I believed about my marriage, then set it on fire. The worst part wasn't even the sex. It was how happy she seemed in those videos. How alive. There were messages where she laughed about married life and joked about how Aaron would never guess his wife's real job was professional nympho. I'd always trusted her. I gave her space, freedom. I thought that was what a healthy marriage was. I didn't ask questions when she came home late. I didn't check her phone. I didn't pry. God, I should have. At some point, she came into the room, fresh out of the shower, hair wet, robe tied loosely at her waist. She looked over and smiled at me. Smile like nothing was wrong. "Hey, babe," she said, walking over and planting a kiss on my forehead. "You okay?" I nodded, muted, the phone face down in my lap. My heart was hammering. I didn't move. "Everything good?" she asked, a slight tilt to her head. I forced a smile I didn't feel. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She gave me another kiss and walked away, humming to herself. That moment was the beginning of something inside me hardening. A wall, maybe a switch flipping. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. Not yet. But I wasn't going to forget. And I damn sure wasn't going to forgive. Not this. Not her. I barely slept that night. Anna curled up beside me like nothing had changed, her arm draped over my chest, breathing slow and steady as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb in our marriage. And I lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, heartbeat echoing in my ears, trying to make sense of how long I'd been living in a lie. At 3:42 a.m., I got up from bed. My feet were ice against the hardwood floor, but I didn't care. I grabbed my laptop from the office, sat on the couch downstairs, and opened WhatsApp. The group chat was still there, work friend conference, and so was every depraved message, photo, and video. They hadn't realized I was still in it. They thought I hadn't seen it. God, that arrogance. I scrolled back, heart pounding harder with each flick of my finger. Weeks, months, maybe longer. I stopped at a photo from 4 weeks ago. Anna in red lingerie I'd never seen before, straddling Jason on a hotel balcony somewhere. Behind them, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and violet. "Anna, that was the hottest night I've had in years. You destroyed me, Jay." Another reply came from someone named Clarissa, one of Anna's colleagues I vaguely remembered meeting once. "Clarissa, you're still walking? I needed a damn ice pack after the Denver trip." "Jason, told you I'd bring the cuffs next time, Anna. Better not chicken out in Boston." I swallowed hard. So this wasn't just a fling. This was a thing. Regular. Routine. And my wife, my sweet, book-loving, Sunday morning sourdough baking wife, was an enthusiastic part of it. The next several hours blurred into one long, numb process. I clicked through every image, read every message, watched every video, no matter how much it hurt. The laughter, the moans, the inside jokes, casual mentions of kink parties, photos from group trips where the captions were layered with double meanings. Everything told the same story. This group wasn't just co-workers. They were a secret club, a sex cult in business casual. Some of the messages weren't even trying to be subtle. "Jason, gonna need a spreadsheet to track who's screwing who this quarter." "Ben, already made one. I call it the orgy org chart. TM pending." I wanted to throw my laptop across the room, but I didn't. Instead, I started taking screenshots. Every message, every photo, every comment that so much as implied what they were doing. I uploaded everything to a hidden folder in my Google Drive labeled Taxes 2018. No one would look twice. Then I opened a blank document and started organizing the evidence. Names, faces, dates, file names, locations. I was methodical, maybe even cold. The betrayal still throbbed in my chest, but I pushed the emotion down and focused on the facts. I built a timeline of Anna's supposed work trips and compared it with the group messages. Every time she told me she was working late, out with friends, or too tired to talk, there was in writing. Pictures of her in some luxury hotel suite, drink in one hand, a coworker's hand wrapped around her waist in the other. Naked smiles, the kind that used to be just for me. There was one video I kept coming back to against my better judgment. Anna and Jason again. This time in a bathroom, mirror behind them. She's bent over the sink, looking straight into the camera, her voice breathless. "But you didn't expect your marketing team to be this tight-knit," she says with a wink. I nearly vomited, but I saved it, like all the others. By 7 a.m., I had compiled enough evidence to burn a dozen marriages and dismantle an entire department. But I didn't stop. I wasn't done, because something had clicked in me during those sleepless hours. Something dark and unflinching. I wasn't just going to expose Anna. I was going to dismantle her world. Carefully, slowly, piece by piece. And I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing I knew. Not yet. No, this had to be planned. Calculated. She came downstairs around 8, stretching in her robe like she hadn't destroyed my entire perception of reality just days ago. "Morning," she said, yawning. "Didn't feel you get up." I turned, keeping my face neutral. Couldn't sleep. Stress from work. "Ah," she murmured, kissing my cheek, her lips brushing the same skin she must have laughed about just hours earlier in some chat. "You've been working too hard. You should take a day off sometime. Maybe we could do a weekend getaway soon." I had to force myself not to recoil, not to ask her if she meant alone, or if Jason would be joining us with his handcuffs and champagne. "Maybe," I said with a smile I didn't feel. And then she turned to the stove, humming a tune I didn't recognize. I stared at her back, the robe loose, her silhouette familiar but now foreign, and I realized something that would guide me for the weeks ahead. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never had been. But that didn't mean I couldn't make sure the truth buried beneath her perfect little world came roaring to the surface. You'd be surprised what kind of performance you can give when your heart's shattered and your mind is quietly building an arsenal. The morning after I discovered the truth about Anna, I made her coffee. That's how it began. The act. The show. The perfectly tailored mask I'd wear for weeks. I greeted her with a kiss, just a light one, the kind you give when you're both running late for work. She didn't suspect a thing. In fact, she looked relieved, like whatever guilt she may have felt about the night before had passed. That little smile she gave me, that would have warmed me once. Now it just told me how practiced she was at this. She thought I was still blind. The thing was, she wasn't wrong. Not completely. I'd spent years being blind. To the signs. To the late-night work calls. The text messages she always answered in the bathroom. The sudden increase in gym hours despite her barely breaking a sweat. But not anymore. Now I saw everything. I heard every inflection in her voice, watched every movement, studied every lie. And I played along, smiling when I needed to, asking about her day, touching her like I used to, not with love but with purpose, because pretending was part of the plan now. The hardest part wasn't suppressing the rage. It was suppressing the curiosity. The desire to keep looking, keep digging, keep torturing myself with more truth. But I couldn't stop. I needed more. So, when she left for work, I waited 15 minutes, just enough time for her to get out of the neighborhood, then walked back inside and went straight for her laptop. And I always thought I was useless with tech. It's probably why she never bothered to log out of her accounts. Maybe she thought I wouldn't understand her cloud drive, or that work folder she kept so neatly organized. She was wrong. I dug in deeper than I had the night before. Her Google Drive was a digital shrine to her double life. Folders labeled with project names that were actually just code for conference trips. Seattle pitch, Denver expansion, Boston brief. Inside were photos, videos, PDFs of hotel bookings, group receipts from fancy dinners, Lyft rides at 1:30 a.m. with Jason as the shared destination. But what gutted me most was the email. It was to one of her close friends, someone I'd met at a barbecue once. The subject line read, "I think I need to tell him soon." The message began, "Sometimes I wonder if Aaron knows. He's been distant lately, but maybe it's just work. Part of me wants him to find out. Not because I want to hurt him, but because I can't keep pretending. Not forever." That line hit me harder than any of the videos. She was tired of pretending. She had the nerve to write that. After all the lying, the cheating, the secret orgies, and whispered plans behind my back. She was tired? No, she wasn't going to end this on her terms. I was. And if I was going to take everything from her, I had to gather it all first. Over the next week, I made it my mission. I lived two lives. The doting husband and the invisible shadow who picked apart her world from the inside. Every evening after she went to bed, I stayed up, combing through emails, hidden folders, Slack messages. I found an old iPad of hers in a drawer and managed to guess the passcode. 4 digits. Our anniversary. How poetic. That iPad, it was a gold mine. Connected to her cloud account and synced with a few old group chats I hadn't seen before. One of them was called Midnight Marketing Crew. Innocent enough until you opened it. The messages read like some twisted underground club. Jason, Anna, still thinking about the thing we did with Rachel in Denver. You were a total beast. Anna, you bring the right kind of tequila to Boston, and I'll show you what a real beast looks like. Clarissa, reminder, book 3 rooms for the Miami conference, or just one big suite again. Every new message was another crack in the illusion I had once called my marriage. By day, I played my role. By night, I built my file. Evidence, screenshots, screen recordings. I backed it all up to 3 separate drives, one local, one in the cloud, and one on a USB hidden in the garage under the old toolbox. I didn't know yet exactly how I'd use it, but I knew the moment would come. And when it did, I wouldn't hesitate. Anna, to her credit, remained completely unaware. She started texting me more, smiling more, playing the devoted wife again, as if some part of her sensed the danger of our quiet tension and thought she could fix it with morning sex and long hugs in the kitchen. I let her. And the sex? It was weirdly hotter than it had been in months. Maybe because I was watching her more closely. Every sound, every movement. Maybe because the control I had over the situation made me feel powerful again. I wasn't making love. I was conducting an interrogation through intimacy. And I wasn't sure if she felt it or not. If she did, she didn't show it. One night, after a particularly intense round, she lay next to me, breathless and glowing. That was different, she said, resting her head on my chest. Yeah, I replied, fingers brushing her shoulder. Different's not always bad. She laughed softly, not knowing the joke she was sleeping next to. I stared at the ceiling that night, wide awake again, my mind racing toward the future. The time for confrontation wasn't now, but it was coming. And when it did, I'd be ready. You know that feeling when you're standing on the edge of something, like the top of a building or the lip of a canyon, and part of you wonders what it would feel like to jump? That's what it felt like the first time I hit Create Account. It wasn't just a fake profile. It was a new identity. I called him Evan Cole, mid-30s, recently transferred marketing analyst, remote worker, the kind of guy who slid under the radar, approachable, vague enough to be forgettable, but detailed enough to be real. I used a photo of some random guy I found on a stock photo website. Handsome, but not threatening. Just polished enough to blend in. Evan was going to take me inside. Anna had mentioned once, in passing, that their company used Slack, Teams, and WhatsApp for internal communication. I remembered because she'd joked about how chaotic it was to juggle 3 platforms. She'd even laughed about a secret meme group they had on WhatsApp. I had no idea how prophetic that would become. I started with Slack. Getting access to a company's Slack workspace isn't hard when the admin team is lazy, which hers was. Posing as Evan, I emailed their IT department pretending I was hired by a regional office in Austin. I crafted a fake HR letter using logos and formatting pulled directly from the company's own website, even listing a fake supervisor. Shockingly, it worked. I was given a temporary password and dropped right into their digital ecosystem like a Trojan horse. The first thing I did was join the general chat. Harmless, boring, memes about Mondays, company polls. But then I started searching for keywords: conference, after party, Jason, Anna. It didn't take long before I stumbled onto something that made my heart stop. A private channel. Hashtag Midnight Lounge. It was locked, but visible. At least the title was. The members were invite only, but I recognized several usernames. Jason, Clarissa, Beck C, and Anna R. My Anna. I couldn't get in, not yet, but just seeing that channel confirmed everything I suspected. The behavior wasn't isolated. It was organized. A clique within the company where boundaries blurred and morality was a punchline. But Slack was just the appetizer. The real dirt was on WhatsApp. I used a burner number, one I'd bought online along with a cheap Android phone I kept stashed in the back of my car. I messaged Jason first under Evan's name. Evan, hey man, just joined the Austin team remotely. Clarissa said to the guy to talk to about getting into the fun groups. He replied 6 minutes later. Jason, El Mio, Clarissa's too honest. You cool? Evan, cool enough. Been remote a while. Missing the company vibe. Jason, all right. What's your WhatsApp? He added me. And just like that, I was in. The group was called The Underground. 22 members. Photos of past trips. Inside jokes. Plans for upcoming conferences. It was less about marketing and more about marketing themselves. Sex, hookups, wild nights. They were proud of it. One post, just days old, showed Jason lying in bed with two women, faces blurred but bodies on full display. Champagne bottles on the nightstand. Comments like, Clarissa, conference call from that bed must have been wild. Anna, next time I want my turn on that headboard again. My wife, my Anna, posting things like that while she curled beside me in bed every night, kissing my neck and asking about my day like she wasn't planning the next group hookup. It wasn't just the sex. It was the casualness of it all, the normalcy. Like this was just what people did when the boss wasn't looking. And maybe it was, at least for them. They didn't know Evan was watching now. Over the next 2 weeks, I didn't just gather evidence. I embedded myself. I posted in the group, joined their team's calls, even flirted mildly in chat. I studied their rhythm, their jokes, their hierarchy. Jason was clearly the ringleader, but Anna had pull too. She wasn't some passive participant. She organized, scheduled, recruited, and then came the invitation. Anna, hey Ed Evan, you've been quiet. Coming to Miami next month. Jason, gotta see what kind of heat the Austin crew's bringing. Evan, wouldn't miss it for the world. When I saw that, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. They trusted me. They had no idea. That night, Anna walked into the kitchen wearing one of those old shirts of mine she used to steal when we were dating. She made herself a cup of tea, leaned on the counter, and said, "You've been in such a good mood lately. I missed this version of you." I smiled at her. "Yeah." She nodded. "You just seem lighter." "Maybe I am," I said. "Maybe I'm finally seeing things clearly." She came closer, put a hand on my chest. "I really do love you, you know." And I swear to God, I almost believed her in that moment. That's how convincing she was. How real she made it feel. But I knew better now. I kissed her, slow, long, deliberate. Not because I wanted to, but because I could. Because Evan was in the group now, and the countdown had already begun. They never saw it coming. That's what I kept telling myself in the final hours leading up to the explosion. Months of pretending, smiling, kissing her goodnight with the same lips she kissed Jason with in some hotel hallway. Months of waking up beside a stranger wearing my wife's face. Months of digital infiltration under the identity of Evan Cole, the mole they invited in themselves. And now all I had to do was hit send. But not yet. The company's annual virtual conference was scheduled for Friday at 9 a.m. A day-long event streamed company-wide to over 700 employees. Presentations, recognition, strategy rollouts, all neatly scheduled. And just before the keynote began, there would be a pre-show slideshow, a rotating collection of company photos, team outings, and office moments shared by employees in the Slack group #WorkConference, a tradition, apparently, to warm up the crowd. This year, I was contributing. I had uploaded 12 images to the company's shared conference folder. No one had noticed. No one had reviewed them. They were labeled like everything else in there, team_memories_2023_Seattle, Austin_offsite_group 2, marketing_trip_snap. But inside those files were stills I'd captured from their chat groups. Screenshots of Anna in lingerie at a hotel party. Jason grinning, his face buried between someone's thighs. Multiple people. Names, faces, bodies, fully visible. Nothing pornographic, but unmistakably explicit. Sexual. Intimate. Unprofessional. And I watermarked each image with their Slack usernames in the corner. Just subtle enough. It wasn't just about Anna anymore. This was about the culture. The whole twisted, toxic system that allowed this crap to thrive under the surface while projecting professionalism on the outside. They mocked the company openly in their chats, joked about who was sleeping with whom in different apartments. HR had been complicit. Hell, I had screenshots showing HR reps involved in some of the messages. This wasn't going to be revenge. It was going to be a reckoning. Friday morning came, and I was strangely calm. Anna had already left early, saying she had to prep with her team for a breakout session. She kissed me like she meant it. Said, "Wish me luck." I told her, "You're going to kill it." She had no idea how prophetic that would turn out to be. I logged into the company stream 5 minutes before the event began. Webcam off. Microphone muted. Evan Cole in the participant list. A perfect ghost in the machine. And there it was, the warm-up slideshow. Music playing softly. The first few photos were harmless. People in office group shots, someone posing with their dog in a hoodie that said team sales, a few candid shots from past conferences. Then my photos started to appear. First, it was one of Jason and Anna by the rooftop pool in Denver. They were laughing, drinks in hand. Anna's swimsuit top was nearly off, but just shy of anything bannable. The usernames were right there in the corner at Anna. Or at Jason.m. The next photo hit harder. 3 coworkers on a bed, clearly mid-hookup, the same hotel room that had shown up in countless WhatsApp threads. Then came the screenshots. Slack messages, WhatsApp chats, sexual jokes, discussions of who was sharing rooms at what conferences. Comments like, Jason, if the AV team ever taps these Zoom calls, we're all fired. Anna, worse, we be viral. Literally and figuratively. People noticed. You could see it in the sudden flood of reactions in the chat. WTF? Who uploaded that? Is this a joke? Please tell me this is staged. At admin remove. But it was too late. The screenshots were already being screenshotted again, this time by everyone. The internal message board exploded. You could feel the panic ripple through the digital fabric of the company. And then came the moment I'd waited for. Anna's camera lit up. She was in a conference room with her team, and the look on her face was the kind of horror you don't act through. She wasn't ready. No one was. Her eyes darted to her screen, reading the messages, the images flashing behind her. Jason was beside her, face pale, already pulling his laptop cord. The host fumbled to stop the slideshow, but by then, dozens, maybe hundreds, had seen everything. Someone's mic turned on. You could hear whispers, gasps. Oh my God, someone cursed. That's Anna. That's Clarissa. That's Brian from HR. Then the host's voice. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. Please stand by. They shut the stream down. I leaned back and stared at the screen. Slack started pinging like a war room. New channels popping up. Crisis threads. HR messages. Emergency all-hands meetings. I switched back to my burner phone. WhatsApp was on fire. Clarissa, who the hell leaked this? Ben, I'm going to jail. That picture from Vegas, Jesus Christ. Jason, this is F******ing Evan. It has to be. He's the only one new. Who else would do this? Asterisk, Anna. No, no way. He didn't even seem interested. Why would he? I stared at her name. The same one I used to text, I love you, to every morning. The same name in my wedding vows. Now confused, humiliated, scrambling. The company sent out an official internal statement 45 minutes later. An incident had occurred during the stream. An internal investigation was underway. Employees shown in the photos and messages were being temporarily suspended pending review. By 2 p.m., Jason's LinkedIn profile was gone. By 5 p.m., Clarissa's work email bounced back. By dinner, Anna was home. She stood in the kitchen, ghost-faced, arms limp at her sides. She didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, eyes red, mascara streaked like war paint. "They think it was you," she whispered. I tilted my head. "Why would they think that?" Because you've been so different." I stood, walked past her, grabbed a glass of water. "You think I'd do something like that?" She hesitated. "No, I don't. I turned to face her fully. "Do you have something to confess, Anna?" She shook her head. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know it would get this big." That was all she said, and I just nodded, cold and slow. "Yeah, I know you didn't." Because that was the point. Chaos has a sound. It's not screaming or crashing or sirens. It's silence. Dead, stunned silence, followed by the sound of scrambling. Phones buzzing, doors slamming, hushed voices trying not to crack. That was the soundtrack to the weekend after the leak. By Monday morning, Anna's company was no longer trying to contain the fire. They were trying to survive it. Half a dozen employees were already gone. Jason was officially terminated on Saturday. Someone leaked the termination letter to an anonymous Twitter account that somehow got a hold of the story. By Sunday, hashtags were trending. Hashtag conference scandal took off, and with it, speculation. Reddit threads, TikToks. A few YouTubers even made deep dives, breaking down screenshots like forensic analysts. The company's PR team issued a bland public statement. Violations of internal code of conduct. Individuals no longer with the company. Culture realignment. But it didn't matter. The internet had already decided the truth. And the truth was much more entertaining. I watched it unfold with a cold, detached focus. Like watching a controlled burn. You don't cry over the flames. You watch to make sure nothing escapes. And it didn't go to work that day. She was suspended, pending investigation, but we both knew what that meant. They couldn't fire her outright. Not yet. They needed to save face. But everyone had seen the photos. Her name was attached to the filth. And if the company didn't get rid of her, their investors might. So she sat at the kitchen table, pale and tight-lipped, fielding call after call from friends, co-workers, even HR. She didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't cry, just sat there, staring down at her phone like it might give her a different ending if she just waited long enough. Then came the knock at the door. I answered it. It was Clarissa, hair tied up, sunglasses hiding her face, dressed like she just rolled out of bed and straight into a courtroom. She looked at me like I was the last person she wanted to see, but not because she suspected me. Because I represented a reality she couldn't undo. "Is Anna home?" she asked, voice hollow. I nodded. "Yeah, she's in the kitchen." Clarissa walked past me, and I caught a whiff of perfume and anxiety. She barely acknowledged me. That was fine. I stood near the staircase, eavesdropping openly. "What are we going to do?" Clarissa whispered. "They're talking about pressing charges for leaking private media." Anna shook her head. "None of that was on company equipment. They can't prosecute what we did on our own time." Clarissa laughed bitterly. "They can't, but our husbands might." Silence. Then, Anna's voice low, shaken. "Does Ben know?" Clarissa didn't answer. That was an answer. Another knock on the door. This time, it was Jason's wife. I didn't let her in. She stood on the porch, mascara running down her cheeks, one hand clutching a manila folder, the other trembling. "Can I speak to Anna?" she asked. "No," I said quietly. "You should leave." Her lips parted like she was about to argue, but then she saw the look in my eyes. Not anger, not grief, just the hollow stillness of someone who's already buried the body. She nodded and walked back down the steps. The folder she left on the mat? Divorce papers. Later that night, Anna finally cracked. She sat in the dark on the living room couch, scrolling through her phone. Then she dropped it in her lap and whispered, "They're going to fire me. All of us." I didn't say anything. "They're talking about lawsuits," she continued. "From shareholders, from partners, from families, spouses. They're tearing everything apart." She looked at me then, her voice trembling. This was supposed to be fun. Just fun. Something on the side. You broke your life apart for fun?" I asked. She flinched. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "That's the problem," I said coldly. "You didn't think about me at all." Her breath caught. "Please, just tell me what you want. Do you want me to leave? Do you want to work through this?" "I'll do anything." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was I didn't know what I wanted anymore. Revenge had been the engine driving me, the thing that kept me focused while I built my case in silence. And now that the explosion had happened, now that they were all in ashes, I felt empty? Not quite. Not yet. But close. "I want you to feel what it's like to watch everything you built fall apart," I said quietly. Just like I did. Anna closed her eyes, and for the first time since this started, I saw her break. Not from fear, not from guilt, but from loss. And the worst part? She wasn't crying because she lost me. She was crying because she lost them. Her circle, her career, her carefully constructed fantasy of being untouchable. The ripple effect was just beginning. In the following days, other spouses filed for divorce. Several internal departments were temporarily dissolved. The board forced out the VP of marketing. A few whistleblowers came forward with claims that the culture had been rotting for years. Investigations followed, and the group that called themselves the Underground, they were ghosts now. Deleted accounts, vanished profiles, quiet resignations. Their Slack channel, once brimming with crude jokes and explicit gifs, was archived and wiped. But the screenshots lived on, in drives, on message boards, in email threads forwarded to HR and beyond. The truth had been seen, and it couldn't be unseen. As for Anna, she stayed quiet. Mostly, she cooked dinner without being asked. She left her phone in plain sight now. She gave me space, didn't press, didn't beg. She walked on eggshells, trying to piece together a normal life in the wreckage of what we'd been. But she never asked who did it, and that told me everything. She suspected. She just couldn't bring herself to face the answer. Because if she did, she'd have to admit I was no longer the man she'd betrayed. I was the man she should have feared. It didn't happen the way I thought it would. I had imagined it so many times, different scenarios, different tones. Maybe she'd scream, accuse me of betrayal, try to twist the narrative and claim I was just as bad. Or maybe she'd go full tearful confession, hands trembling, ready to admit everything in some desperate act of redemption. But when a moment finally came, it wasn't loud. It was quiet, terrifyingly quiet. It was a Thursday evening, for days since the leak. Anna had barely left the house since. Her phone rarely left her hand, but she wasn't scrolling social media or messaging anyone anymore. No more group chats. No Jason. No conference planning. Just silence and static and shame. I was upstairs pretending to read when I heard her footsteps come up the stairs and stop just outside the bedroom door. Then a pause. Then the soft knock. I said nothing. The door creaked open, and she stepped inside slowly, like she was walking into a funeral home. Her face was pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything she'd lost had physically shrunken her. She stood there in silence for a moment before speaking. You knew, didn't you? I didn't look up. Knew what? Her voice cracked. Don't do that. Please. I closed the book. I knew. I said simply. I knew everything. She let out a sound. Not quite a sob, not quite a breath. More like the air, leaving someone who just got gut punched. How long? She asked. I met her eyes. Since the day you accidentally added me to your little group chat. She covered her mouth, staggered backward, and sat on the edge of the bed like her legs had given out. You saw all of it? I nodded. The pictures? The videos? The messages? All of it. She buried her face in her hands. Oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't speak. I wanted her to sit with it, drown in it. After a long silence, she looked up at me. Face red, eyes puffy, hands trembling. Why didn't you say anything? The question caught me off guard, but only for a second. Because I wanted you to see what it feels like to be kept in the dark. To live a lie you didn't know you were in. I wanted you to feel powerless, vulnerable, exposed, just like I did. She shook her head. But you destroyed lives. People were fired. Families broke apart. So did mine, I said coldly. Tears started falling then. Real ones. Big, broken sobs that shook her shoulders. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't respond. I never meant to hurt you. I know that sounds hollow, but it's true. It started as just fun, a distraction. I didn't think it would spiral. I stood up, pacing slowly across the room. You weren't just unfaithful, Anna. You lived a second life. You laughed behind my back. You bragged. You joked about how clueless I was. You didn't just betray me, you mocked me. She winced, every word hitting like a slap. I know, and I hate myself for it. You should, I snapped. Because you didn't just destroy us. You destroyed me. Her eyes locked onto mine then, desperate and pleading. Tell me what I can do. Please. I'll do anything. I'll quit. I'll get therapy. I'll go to counseling. Just tell me there's a way back. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You don't get to ask for forgiveness just because you're sorry now that it's all burned to the ground. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she whispered. I'm asking for a chance. A second chance. Just to try. Please. For a long moment, the room was still, and I realized then that part of me had wanted this. Wanted to see her broken, unraveling, desperate for the thing she took for granted. But now that it was here, all I felt was empty. I don't know if I can ever touch you again without seeing him, I said quietly. Or them. Or the way you laughed when they passed you around like a trophy. She sobbed harder, curling into herself like she could fold small enough to escape her own skin. I'm not the same man you married, I added. And you're not the same woman I fell in love with. I don't even know who you are anymore." She looked up, makeup running down her cheeks, hair falling messily across her face. "Then let me show you. Let me try to be better. For you. For us. Please." Her voice cracked on that word, us. The one she'd shattered. I walked toward the door. Paused. "You want to know the truth?" She nodded slowly. "I don't think you're sorry for what you did. I think you're sorry you got caught." She gasped, but I was already gone. Down the stairs, out the door, into the quiet of a dark street that felt more like home now than the bed we used to share. That night, I didn't sleep in the house. And for the first time in months, I didn't dream about her. The silence after a storm is deafening. Not just around you, but inside you. For weeks, my life had been consumed with strategy. Screenshots, fake identities, late-night digital espionage. The planning, the execution, the explosion, it had filled a void in me, kept the pain at bay. But now, the silence echoed. It was a strange kind of emptiness. Not peace, not closure, just stillness. I stayed at a friend's place for the first few nights after the confrontation. Rick and I had been close since college. He didn't ask questions when I showed up with an overnight bag and a hollow stare. He handed me a beer, patted my shoulder, and let me sit in silence. That was all I needed. The first night, I barely slept. The second, I dreamed of Anna. Not the Anna from the videos or the chats. Not the Anna who laughed in hotel rooms while other men explored the body I thought was mine. No, this was the Anna from 5 years ago. The one who made blueberry pancakes on Sunday mornings. Who would steal my hoodies and curl up on the couch watching true crime documentaries. The woman who whispered, "I can't believe I found you in the dark after sex," like it was a secret. That Anna haunted me, because I missed her. Even now, that was the cruelest part of betrayal. You don't just lose someone, you lose every memory of them, too. The good ones. The ones that used to make you smile. They get rewritten, tainted. Suddenly, every flash of joy is suspicious. Every touch, every kiss, every "I love you" becomes a question mark. Was she thinking of him? Was it all a lie? I didn't want to miss her. God, I wanted to hate her. And part of me did. But another part, the part that remembered our wedding day, or the way she cried when we first bought our house, that part didn't know where to go now. So I tried to find answers somewhere else. I pulled up the screenshots again. Part of me needed to revisit it all, to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that the pain was real, that the betrayal wasn't imagined. But this time, it didn't fuel me. It hollowed me. I looked at the pictures of her in someone else's lap, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world, and I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt grief. Deep, suffocating grief for something that used to be beautiful. A love that was once honest. A partnership I thought was built on trust. I'd spent so much time focused on destroying her world that I hadn't realized how much of mine was going with it. The revenge felt good in the moment. There was power in it. Control. But now that it was over, the high was gone. The fallout remained. I sat with that feeling for days. Anna texted. A lot. At first, she begged me to come home. Then the tone shifted. More reserved. Sad. Not angry, just defeated. I understand if you never want to see me again. I deserve every ounce of this. But I miss you. I miss us. Even if we were broken, you were still the only real part of my life. That last message hit harder than I wanted it to. I didn't respond. Instead, I found myself in a therapist's office the next week. I hadn't planned on it. I just walked in, told the receptionist I didn't know what I was looking for, just that I couldn't stop replaying what I'd seen. The betrayal, the fallout, and worse, my own actions. I told the therapist everything. The group chat, the fake profile, the leak, the corporate chaos, the humiliation I engineered for her. And then I said the words I didn't even realize were sitting in my chest. I think I became someone else through all this. She nodded, didn't judge, just asked, "Do you regret it?" I sat there trying to find the answer. "No," I said slowly, "but I don't feel good about it either." That was the truth. The cold, complicated truth. Revenge didn't fix anything. It didn't undo the betrayal. It didn't erase the images burned into my brain, or the sound of Anna's voice when she begged me for another chance. All it did was level the playing field. Mutually assured destruction. and I was left standing in the ashes of something I had once believed in. I began journaling after that, not because I wanted to be poetic, but because the noise in my head wouldn't stop. Writing gave it somewhere to go. I wrote about the rage, the heartbreak, the moments I'd remember forever, not the sexual stuff, but the smaller betrayals. The way she stopped looking at me during dinner. The nights she claimed to be too tired for sex, but was lively and wild in those chat threads just hours later. Those cut deeper than the images. Because they were personal, I realized in therapy that I wasn't just grieving the betrayal. I was grieving the version of me who still believed people didn't lie like that. I was grieving the man who trusted blindly, who loved without fear, who thought marriage meant safe. And maybe that version of me had to die for me to become whoever I needed to be now. Stronger? Maybe. Harder? Definitely. But not cold. Because if I let this turn me into someone bitter, someone unreachable, then I lose more than a wife. I lose myself. The end didn't come with a bang. No shouting match. No slamming doors. No Hollywood drama. It came in the form of manila envelopes on a kitchen table and a quiet conversation that barely lasted 20 minutes. Anna and I had lived in limbo for nearly a month after the confrontation. She stayed in the guest room. We spoke occasionally, mostly about logistics. Groceries. Bills. The dog's vet appointment. Nothing real. Nothing about us. The house felt like a mausoleum. Familiar, but dead. She walked softer, laughed less, stared out the window like she was waiting for something that would never come. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me, like she wanted to say something, but whatever it was, she swallowed it. And I let her, because I didn't want words anymore. I wanted closure. And so one Thursday afternoon, I handed her the documents. Divorce, she asked, not surprised, just quiet. I nodded. Yeah. She held the envelope in both hands like it might burn her fingers. Is there any room to talk about this? There was, I said gently, but it passed, along with a version of me who could have ever trusted you again. She blinked, looked down. I understand. I expected more. Tears, maybe. Resistance. Desperation. But all I got was quiet resignation. Maybe she was too tired. Or maybe she realized, finally, that the damage couldn't be undone. She signed the papers 2 days later. From there, it moved fast. She moved out of the house within a week. Took only a few things, clothes, toiletries, a couple of boxes of books and photo albums. She didn't fight me on the house. Didn't contest a single clause in the separation agreement. It was like she knew she had no more ground to stand on. I watched her pack, and I didn't help. Not because I was cruel, but because she needed to do it alone. She needed to feel what it was like to disassemble her life, one drawer, one memory, one mistake at a time. On her last day, she stood in the doorway of what used to be our bedroom. The light was soft. Her silhouette looked almost ghostly. She began, but the words caught in her throat. I didn't rush her. Finally, she managed. Thank you for not destroying me more than you already could have. I looked at her, expression blank. You destroyed yourself, Anna. I just stopped covering for you. She nodded. No anger. No tears. Just the full weight of truth settling on her like dust on forgotten furniture. Then she left. The moment the door closed behind her, something inside me shifted. Not relief. Not sadness. Just clarity. I stood in the center of the living room, staring at the empty space where her keys used to hang, where her laugh used to live, where I used to feel safe. The house was still, but no longer suffocating. I spent the next few weeks doing something I hadn't done in years, rebuilding. Not physically, emotionally, quietly. I started going out again, grabbing drinks with Rick, catching a concert with an old college friend, even joining a hiking group I used to blow off when Anna was working late. No one knew the full story, just that I was figuring things out. And that was enough. I also went back to therapy. My counselor and I talked a lot about identity, how easily it can be tied to your partner, your marriage, your expectations, and how, when those things fall apart, you're left staring into the mirror, asking yourself the most terrifying question. Who am I now? For a while, I didn't have an answer. But with each passing day, I started to feel it, just beneath the surface. A version of myself I hadn't met yet. One who wasn't shaped by betrayal. One who didn't need revenge to feel strong. One who could love again, not out of fear, not out of nostalgia, but from a place of truth. I won't lie and say the pain disappeared. It didn't. There are still moments when I think about her laugh, or the way she used to trace circles on my arm when we fell asleep. There are still nights when I dream of those damn videos, and I wake up sweating, heart racing, throat dry with rage. But those moments come less often now, and when they do, I let them pass like a storm in the distance. Loud, but no longer destructive. A few weeks after she moved out, Anna texted me. Just wanted to say thank you again for not turning it into a war. I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it anyway. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need anything else from her. Not her guilt, not her gratitude, and definitely not her closure. That was something I'd learned to give myself. It took months before the silence stopped feeling like loneliness. At first, the house echoed. Every room held a memory I didn't want to revisit. The kitchen reminded me of mornings with her in my shirt, flipping pancakes. The bedroom, well, that was the hardest. Not just because of what she did, but because of what it used to be. That was the space where we whispered dreams, built plans, shared 1,000 private moments that I thought belonged only to us. But over time, something strange happened. The memories faded. Or maybe they stopped matching so much. I started replacing them. Little things at first. A new couch, different bed sheets, a fresh coat of paint on the walls. I took down the framed photo of us in Italy and replaced it with a print of a misty mountain range I'd always wanted to hike. It was like slowly untangling myself from a life that no longer fit. Then came bigger changes. I joined a local gym, not because I wanted to get revenge fit, but because I needed something to focus on. I picked up photography again, dusted off my old Nikon, and started taking long weekend drives just to shoot landscapes and empty roads. There was something healing about capturing stillness. It mirrored what I was trying to build inside myself. Friends started noticing the difference. "You look lighter," Rick said one night at the bar. "I feel lighter," I admitted. He nodded, raised his glass. "Good. You deserve to be." I didn't know what I deserved for a while. After the leak, after everything I did, there was this gnawing fear that maybe I'd gone too far. That maybe the scorched earth I left behind would swallow me, too. But therapy helped me make peace with that part. I had done what I did because I needed to reclaim something, dignity, maybe power. But I also accepted that revenge couldn't give me healing. Only distance could, and time, and truth. And I was finally learning to live in all three. One evening, I got a message on Instagram from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Leah, a woman I used to work with. We'd always gotten along, but back then I was married and she was dating someone long distance. Just a, "Hey, I saw one of your photos and thought it was beautiful. Hope you're doing well." Nothing more. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because of her, but because of what it meant. For the first time since Anna's betrayal, the idea of someone else didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like possibility. I messaged her back. We grabbed coffee a week later. Nothing serious. Just two people reconnecting. No pressure. No expectations. And when she laughed at something stupid I said, it felt real. Not like filling a void. Not like a distraction. Just simple. Good. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer in my hand. The sky just starting to turn from gold to deep blue. The kind of evening that used to make me feel haunted. But not anymore. Because I was finally learning how to sit with my story. All of it. The love I lost. The betrayal I endured. The revenge I delivered. The pain I carried. And the strength I didn't know I had. My marriage didn't survive. But I did. And that was something worth holding on to. Anna never reached out again. No final letter. No surprise visit. Just silence. Which, oddly enough, became its own kind of peace. I don't hate her. Not anymore. But I also don't miss her. And that's how I knew I was free. The day my divorce was finalized, I took the papers, folded them once, and slid them into the back of a drawer. No ceremony. No fire. No social media post. Just closure. There are scars, of course. There always will be. Betrayal like that doesn't leave you untouched. But it doesn't owe me anymore. I'm building something new now. And this time, I'm doing it with open eyes, a guarded heart, and a soul that finally knows what it's worth. If you're reading this, if you're in the thick of it, surrounded by lies, and wondering if the pain will ever stop, just know this. It does. It won't happen all at once. But one day, you'll wake up and the heaviness will be a little lighter. The memories will sting a little less. And the future? It'll stop being something you dread. It'll become something you want again. That's what starting over really means. Not forgetting, not erasing, just learning to breathe again, one honest breath at a time.